Susan Collins is somebody who stems all of Donald Trump's worst impulses, from stripping health care away from tens of millions of Americans that will lead to death. We talked about the affordability issues. We talked about ICE even. I mean, Susan Collins rubber-stamped Kristi Noem, which led to the death of Alex Preddy and Renee Good.
Adam Mockler made another appearance on Abby Phillip's show, where he went head-to-head with a few of the familiar MAGA panelists who always seem to be part of the discussion. We're going to take a closer look at some of the most important moments from Adam Mockler's debate, along with the wider conversation that unfolded on Abby Phillip's panel. I also have some thoughts and reactions of my own that I'll be sharing throughout the video. So let's get started and break down exactly what happened here together.
Following breaking news tonight on a number of key primary races across the country with control of Congress at stake, one of the most consequential contests is unfolding in the state of Maine, where Democrat Graeme Plater just clinched the state's nomination for the United States Senate. That's despite a slew of scandals that he has faced in the months leading up to tonight's vote.
And to any of those who feel let down or disappointed or disillusioned, it is my job to earn your trust, faith, and support. And I will spend every day of this campaign, and if I have the privilege, every day in the United States Senate doing exactly that.
Platner will face longtime GOP Senator Susan Collins in a crucial matchup, and Democrats will almost certainly need to win it if the party hopes to flip the chamber in the fall. We're also keeping an eye on South Carolina, where Republican Senator Lindsey Graham just punched his ticket for November without a runoff. And in the state's GOP primary for governor, Congresswoman Nancy Mace is admitting defeat in a race that has tested the power of President Trump's influence and his endorsement. Instead, Trump backed Lieutenant Governor Pam Yvette, and she will advance to the runoff later this month, along with Attorney General Alan Wilson. But let's start with Maine and the Graeme Plater of it all. He gave a pretty defiant speech tonight. He attacked Susan Collins, but basically he was arguing this is a redemption narrative, right? He quoted a hymn, "I was once lost and now I'm found," though he admitted that he's not very religious. Nevertheless, we've heard this from many a politician before. Is it enough?
I think it remains to be seen if it's enough. And what I'm curious on to see is, what do the vote totals look like? I mean, how much did Janet Mills pull from Graeme Plater? Because that's going to be really a big indicator of how much he's going to have to win when it comes to Maine voters. At the end of the day, I mean, I think Graeme Plater is a very flawed candidate. I think if I were a Mainer today, I would have probably cast my vote for Janet Mills. I think every moment that we talk about Graeme Plater and his scandals or whatever it is, we're losing time talking about the issues that matter to voters, which is, as we know, affordability and gas prices. And I think we're taking away from candidates who are putting competitive seats in play, like in Iowa, Ohio, even in Texas in the Senate race, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I think Graeme Plater is going to have a wave to overcome, and I don't know if there's more coming out, but if there is, he's going to have to brace for that.
There probably is more coming out, don't you think, Adam?
There could be, but we are now witnessing the post-cancellation, post-purity style of politics that the Republican Party has ushered in. I'm not going to sit here and defend things Graeme Plater did in his past. Not even Graeme Plater defends these things that he did in his past. But we have watched for a decade as Republicans have repeatedly lowered the threshold, lowered the standards for their candidates. And now Democrats are going to keep holding our candidates to an infinitely higher standard while we have Ken Paxton in Texas, while we have Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office right now. And I guess it remains to be seen. But I also want to
Is it a high standard or is it a low standard?
Listen,
because I'm not sure that he's being held to a higher standard than anybody else.
Well, but the Republican Party is absolutely holding him to a higher standard than they hold their own candidates. I mean, Donald Trump had a sit-down dinner with Nick Fuentes, and the very same people who were silent about that are now clutching their pearls about this admittedly weird tattoo that Graeme Plater has apologized for.
It's the same Nazi tattoo,
yeah.
Adam. Acknowledge that. It's not weird. It's a Nazi tattoo.
It's awful, yeah.
So, I mean, look, Democrats now I hear what you're saying, and I know we've had conversations with you, Caroline, about similar things, but basically Democrats are saying that we're going to go lower. They go low, we go just as low.
I think that Democrats are trying to reframe this away from Graeme Plater's personality and towards a race between Graeme Plater versus Susan Collins. Susan Collins is somebody who stems all of Donald Trump's worst impulses, from stripping health care away from tens of millions of Americans that will lead to death. We talked about the affordability issues. We talked about ICE even. I mean, Susan Collins rubber-stamped Kristi Noem, which led to the death of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. So I'm not going to sit here and judge Mainers who want to push against the status quo. It's not my place to judge. If Graeme Plater can earn their trust, then he earns their trust.
But I think what's missing in the analysis here is that
Adam Mockler makes a point here that a lot of people on the Republican side appear to judge Graeme Plater by standards they do not consistently apply to their own political leaders. These are the same individuals who still support Donald Trump, a figure who has been surrounded by controversy in a way that is almost unmatched in modern American politics. Critics often point to issues such as his felony conviction, his connection to the events around January 6th, and many other controversies that have followed him over the years. The list is extensive, and for many voters, because of that, the criticism aimed at Graeme Plater can feel difficult to take seriously. In the end, a lot of people are thinking in simpler terms. They want a candidate whose policies actually improve their daily lives and who focuses on domestic problems instead of spending large amounts of money on foreign conflicts. They do not want to keep hearing that there is not enough funding for programs like Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and other essential services, while huge sums continue to be spent elsewhere. At the same time, in an ideal situation, voters would prefer a candidate who not only has strong policies, but also has a clean record and no history of controversy. That would be the perfect combination. However, many voters are also frustrated with politicians who make big promises but fail to follow through once in office. Whether Graeme Plater is genuinely committed to what he says and whether he would actually deliver on those promises if elected is something that still cannot be known for certain. Even so, some voters feel he has already won the primary, and while these concerns are worth discussing, they seem minor to them compared to the long list of controversies tied to Donald Trump, who continues to have strong support within much of the Republican Party. Because of this, many Democrats argue that claims of hypocrisy are not accurate and instead believe that the criticism is coming from people who have long ignored much larger issues within their own political side.
Graeme Plater just won a Democrat primary by running on the best aspects of President Trump's 2024 campaign platform. If you look at Graeme Plater's platform, he ran on no foreign intervention in the Middle East, no new wars. He ran on D.C. has been working for the elites and it has stopped working for the working class, which is very similar to President Trump's original drain the swamp message. He ran on bringing back U.S. manufacturing, working class issues. He's an anti-establishment working class candidate.
That's the Democratic Party.
That's what you guys are missing.
She is making an important point.
He ran on that, and that's what he won.
This is a version of the type of politics, of a type of populism on the left that Trump ran. At least he ran on it on the right. I'm not sure we could argue he governed quite that way, but he ran on it.
My gut tells me this is a byproduct of the wrapping of the messenger, as much as it is the message itself. He looks like a dude. Let's just say what it is. He's got the scruff. He's got the edge. At a moment in which Democrats were...
I actually would say
it's the politics.
I don't think it's that.
Allow me to finish, though. Allow me to finish, because it's actually the Democrats who did this whole autopsy on what it is to be masculine.
Did you guys? Did you ever notice that? I've never seen it.
Allow me to finish. It's the Democrats who did this whole analysis about what it means to be masculine. They didn't do that because there wasn't a problem there. They didn't do that because there wasn't something that was happening on the right that they couldn't tap into. When I look at Graeme Plater, the first thing I think of, he looks like a dude. And he looks like someone who looks very different than many of the men who lead the Democratic Party. And I think that is an appealing aspect that Democrats need to talk about.
And maybe the flaws are part of that package.
No. You are correct, LZ, with that part. He looks like a dude. And when he first entered the race and he said, I'm an oyster farmer, I said, uh-oh, we got problems. Turns out he's not an oyster farmer. Turns out he's not a low-class guy. With the hotch, he's got about 20. He isn't what he says he is. Now, this isn't a reframing about turning this to Susan Collins. Susan Collins is the Republican every Democrat wishes every Republican was.
No.
She convicted Donald Trump.
No.
Yes, she worked with Joe Biden on a bunch of stuff. She is as bipartisan as they come.
No, she's not. She rubber stamps everything. Susan Collins is the
garbage. And by the way, come November, just like 6 years ago, just like we were seeing garbage polls about Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, we saw garbage polls about Susan Collins in Maine. Come November, she's going to wipe the floor with her.
All these stories.
Susan Collins in Maine, Mainers don't want to be put in a moral quandary.
Can I just say something to Caroline's point?
But when they learn about his scandals, just to be clear, when voters learn about Graeme Plater scandals, oh, you're going to like this. Trust me, just you wait. You're going to love me saying this. When voters learn about Graeme Plater's scandals, he beats Susan Collins. He goes up in the polls, 48 to 43. Republicans, I'm telling you, he got off talking about his scandals. We have to talk about the fact that he wants to abolish ICE, which is a...
I think Caroline Sunshine brings up an interesting point when she says that Graeme Plater is echoing a lot of the same ideas that Donald Trump used during his campaigns. The main difference, however, is that we still do not really know what Graeme Plater would actually do once he is in office. Nobody knows him personally, And it is always possible that a candidate can campaign in one way and then govern in a completely different way once they win. That happens in politics more often than people like to admit. Still, when Caroline Sunshine points out that he is leaning into a populist type of message, there is some truth to that observation. Donald Trump was successful in large part because he understood how to connect with voters through populist messaging, and he built much of his political appeal around that style of communication. His critics argue that he often said whatever was needed to gain support, whether it was promises about ending foreign wars or presenting himself as a leader focused on peace and change. Yet many of those promises are still debated today. What stands out in this discussion is that both Caroline Sunshine and Adam Mockler are pointing toward a bigger issue, which is that a lot of Democratic voters today are interested in candidates who take a stronger populist approach. One panelist suggested that Republicans like Susan Collins represent the kind of politician Democrats should be drawn to, but Adam Mockler pushed back on that idea right away. His argument was that even if some people in the Democratic establishment prefer that more traditional style, many Democratic voters do not actually feel the same way. Instead, they're looking for candidates who are more critical of foreign intervention, who want to focus money and attention on domestic issues, and who strongly support programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, while prioritizing the needs of people at home. In many ways, those kinds of ideas connect with voters across different groups. That is part of why Graeme Plater's message seems to be gaining attention, because it taps into the same frustration with the political system and the same anti-establishment feeling that has shaped other surprising political movements in recent years. The real question is whether that kind of message can actually overcome resistance from both sides of the political establishment. There are people within the Republican Party who are skeptical of it, and there are also voices within the Democratic Party who are uncomfortable with that direction as well. Whether this kind of movement continues to grow or eventually hits a limit is something we still do not know. At this point, debates about Graeme Plater's past, personal controversies, or character issues may not matter as much to many voters as his actual policy positions. We're in a political moment where a lot of people care more about what a candidate says they will do than about their personal history. For many voters, the main question is whether the agenda matches their own priorities. As Adam Mockler pointed out during the discussion, Republicans often try to hold Democratic candidates to standards that they do not always apply to their own side. That argument continues to create tension in politics and does not seem like it will go away anytime soon. But I would like to hear what you think about all of this. Do you agree with Adam Mockler's point from this debate? Do you think Caroline Sunshine made a fair observation about Graeme Plater's message on Abby Phillip's panel? And if a candidate in your area shared your policy views but had some personal controversies, would that change your vote, or would you still prioritize policy first? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.